All right, we're heading into this last video of 2023. I can't believe I actually stayed consistent enough to say I've done almost a year's worth of videos, but let's get into the recap. So, welcome. I am Tiffany. This channel is called Beyond Swatches. We'll get into reasons later, but I'm pretty sure I put it in a video before. And yeah, this is surreal in a way. I'm closing out 2023 with finally the final video of the year. I had a nice long break. My mom came to visit in November, so I did not give you a weekly video because I was busy being with mom, um, and after that, I was just in a weird, funky headspace. I enjoyed the break so much that I guess I just extended the break, but I could not leave the year of 2023 behind without at least taking a moment to kind of go through a lot of the fails and some successes that I've had throughout the year. Let's get started with just some boring introduction stuff for those of you who might be new. I live in a very teeny tiny town inside of North Carolina. It's so tiny. I think the population here is like 2,800 people in the town. Now, I don't know about the city. It's a lot bigger, but this little town I live in is very, very tiny. Yeah. I am a mom of four, five if you include my husband, but four. I have three daughters. They are 18. One just turned 21 on the 17th, and the oldest will be 29 next month. And then I have a tuxedo cat who is 2 years old. She is extremely vocal and she is very persistent, so I'm pretty sure you will hear her in all of my videos at some point. I also have my notes down here at the bottom of the phone, so if I look like I'm looking off into space, that's what I'm looking at, just so you know. The boring details. I learned to knit in 2002 when I was very pregnant with my second daughter, the 21-year-old. And I just fell in love with the process. It was so interesting to me to take something and make a thing like string, a stick, or a hook, and just make a hat or a scarf or a baby outfit. I saw tons of patterns when I was pregnant, and I was like, I want to make that for my baby. So I just fell in love with the craft. Somewhere maybe around 2008, 9, 10, I discovered Ravelry, which was mind-blowing. There were patterns for days on Ravelry. But what I found was there wasn't a lot of clothing patterns that were sized to fit a 48, then 46 bust. Most patterns kind of maxed out around 42. And so I was kind of limited, but that was okay because I was very intimidated by the idea of making a whole sweater. And I settled on hats and scarves, and I love making them. Did I finish them all? No. Did I like the end result of all? Not at all. And mainly because a lot of the patterns, they were not hard. I was a new knitter, so I didn't understand really some of the directions, so you just kind of finagle it and you make the stitch count match at the end of the row. Even though you did a knit two together and you were supposed to do some yarn over there, whatever I did, I made it work, but I got to the end and it was like, it's okay, I finished it, but but I've always been a process knitter. Very few items do I have to have or that I long for so much that I just crave the pattern. It does happen, of course, but that wasn't my thing back then. And then, quite honestly, yarn at the time was very limited to what I could get a hold of. It was usually what I'd found in Walmart, and that was a Red Heart Super Saver, which I fell in love with all of the colors, right? But nobody, well, I don't want to walk around in camouflage print, purple, white, blue, and green in a car for a sweater. So that was a little difficult to just get in and fall in love with the end result, but I love the process of making a thing. And then maybe I guess 2013, 14, 15, somewhere in that era, um, the Yarn Craft Council, the knitting gurus, the designers individually, I don't know, but the sizes on standards increased. And all of a sudden, I was seeing on Instagram, because that was still new for me around then too, I was seeing on Instagram a lot of sweaters that plus size people. Now, when I say plus size, I'm not talking about like what we see now as plus size, right? I was seeing just what would standardly be called maybe a large or an extra large, um, but they looked like they were bigger than the standard medium. So I got excited and I was looking and searching for these designers, and then I was buying patterns. Nope, I take that back. I was getting a lot of free patterns because free is it, you know. The problem with free though, sometimes people make patterns and they don't necessarily get them edited. So you're not really sure if the directions are right. You're not sure if the fit is going to be right. I did not understand gauge. Technically, I still don't. I mean, I understand the concept of it, but it just does not work for me sometimes. Instagram became very popular and people were putting up pictures or videos of them knitting, and they were putting up free patterns online, but these were real designers who have other paid patterns, but they would offer free stuff. I encourage every designer to do at least one free pattern, because we as the consumer would like to know your writing style before I commit to a 8 to 10 to $12 pattern, you know. So it's really, really helpful when someone offers a nice free pattern for us to kind of get the feel. And that's how I started to discover newer designers that I really grabbed. I got here. Oh, and as far as the name goes, Beyond Swatches, like I said, I started making a lot of ball band patterns. So I would just start knitting, and all I knew was the knit stitch, and I knew the purl stitch pretty well. And I would just knit and purl, and then I learned the moss stitch, and I was like making the thing, but it wasn't really a making of, you know. I would have these squares, essentially swatches, and that's all that I would do because I was not confident in what I was making. And so, yeah, I decided one day, you're going beyond this swatch and you're going to make a sweater. And as cheesy as it sounds, that's the name that I came up with for this channel and for myself, just to remind myself, don't stay stuck in the beginning. It's okay to challenge yourself and grow, but that'll be in a 2024 video, because that's my goal. For the year of 2023, I did not intend on making this YouTube channel like at the end of 22. So when 23 came in, I had thought about it, but it wasn't really on my radar. So I didn't really document very well my projects. And because of that, I feel like the way that I would love to show my patterns or projects that I made is very disjointed. So I figured I'll scroll through my Ravelry and we'll just look at some of the posts that I've had from January up until December. What in the world's wrong with my brain? So we'll just look through my Ravelry page. Now I will say, as I look through my camera roll, I have tons of unfinished objects, which I'm pretty sure will be in a video at some point to figure out whether I'm going to frog them or if I'm just going to sit down and finish them. But these are the ones that I have through my Ravelry page. I mean, through my Instagram page. First up was a hat. And I feel like hats are just my go-to project. They're very simple. Well, not necessarily simple. People can complicate a hat pattern, but a hat is like a commitment that doesn't require a commitment. You know, you can pick it up and put it down. It's relatively small. You can, it's not a 6-week timeline like a sweater. So that's my thing. I love making hats. It keeps my hands busy. I have a lot of hats in this. Well, you can't see them, they up here, but I have a lot of hats that I make, and I just make them. I have no purpose for them. I usually can't fit them over my hair anyway. So you know, I'm not a hat person, but every once in a while, even in North Carolina, it gets kind of cold. The first hat that I have listed is from, it's a pattern from Courtney Flynn. She is Flynn Knit on Instagram. She came out with a book. I don't know if this book came out in 2023 or if it came out at the end of 22 and I just got around to making it. I'm not 100% sure, but I just plucked the pattern out of that book. It was one of those, she's really known for her color work, and just like her flat lays on Instagram are so inspiring. They're so colorful and this, that, and the third. And I wanted to get her book to support her, but then I looked through the book and I just loved the way it was written. It was one of the things I liked in that book was, you know how some patterns they tell you your suggested yarn, and then they don't kind of tell you what the weight of that yarn is. They don't give you other suggestions. So in her book, she would say she's using, let's say, Malabrigo, uh, worsted or Rios or whatever, and then she would say, or any other worsted weight yarn, which I know I could go online and look up Malabrigo, whatever, and figure it out, but it's really helpful to just have it in the book so I can look in my cabinet here and determine which one of the weights that I already have I need, instead of having to do all the extra research. Just a personal preference, and I really love that in there. The pattern style of writing, very simple. Um, and this hat, it's not something that I would personally wear, but it was fun to make. Um, would anybody else want to wear it? I have no idea, but it was fun to make. And I think all of the hats in her book are worth making or gifting. Some are really, really nice. I'm not a super bulky knit person, but that's the thing that people like, so you give the people what they want, you know. Next up was a quick test knit for a headband. This also is in super bulky yarn. This was by Gabrielle from Lila Rose Studio. Um, this headband is called the Bias Ear Warmer. Now, this pattern went really quick. I think I finished it in like an hour, maybe an hour and a half, sewing it up. Um, and like I said, I usually have braids or some sort of crochet hair going on, so I'm not a hat person, but an ear warmer is my jam, because that just covers like right here and covers the ears, which is the part that gets the coldest, and it looks nice and it gives you the hat feel without, or the hat hair. So the only thing that I did not like about this pattern, which has nothing to do with the pattern, but it is just personal preference, what I would do making them again is do a provisional cast on, so that when I go to seam it closed, it's more seamless than whip stitching. Now for a quick gift and you just want to throw it on the needles and get it off real fast, I'm sure your recipient would not notice unless they were a knitter too. But if they're just a regular person that you love, they wouldn't notice one way or the other. But for me, that type of finishing is the things that I really want to work on. I don't want to just have janky finishing with a beautiful, you know, body, but with this crappy looking hem or bind off, you know. So for me, that would be the only thing I would change on this. So next up, technically, was finished in 2022. I want to say I finished it probably like soon after Thanksgiving, right into the beginning of December of 22. But I needed it. I made it specifically for January for an occasion that I was going to. Similar to this year, except we don't got no dress for this year, but we'll talk about that later. So I made this dress and I was terrified. I was like, am I going to really commit to this? And I made it out of acrylic yarn because I did not, it was made out of chunky. It's a chunky weight, bulky 5. And I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money. So I ordered the yarn from Premier Yarns, which if you don't shop at Premier, shame on you, because they have really great acrylic yarns. They also, I don't know if they're a sister company too. I don't know if they're a partner with, but Universal Yarns is often on their website when they are clearancing out items. Um, and that's great because the pricing is wonderful. Sometimes they do like bag sales where you get 3 or 5 skeins for, you know, $25, $20, whatever it is. Um, So yeah, don't sleep on Premiere, which by the way, this right here, all that over there, Black Friday. The skeins were like $1, $2, and $3. Like $1 to $5, I was losing my marbles. But again, we'll talk about that later throughout time. Um, so I made this dress, and I love it. I absolutely love it. There's some things about it probably that I would like to change. Like I would make it a little bit shorter because it's acrylic yarn and it grew a little bit in length after sitting in it, walking in it. The heat just started to kind of just a little bit stretch the acrylic. Um, but everybody loved it. It was not in a color that I normally would pick for myself, but it still worked out wonderful, and I would definitely suggest the pattern. Would I make it again? I don't have a need for a dress with the same pattern in multiple colors, but I would like to make it again just for the sake of doing so in a better quality yarn and seeing how it would, operate. Next was a cabled hat and scarf, which I turned into a cowl. This is a Lion brand pattern. So it came out of a book that I found in, I don't know, Barnes and Noble, maybe Joann's. I think it was Joann's. It must have been, because it had a 40% coupon. And I remember using it off a regular price item. And it was just Quick and Easy Knits is the book. All of the patterns in this book use the bulky 6 yarn. So that woolly, super bulky, thick and quick, whatever. And I think it said in the book I needed 2 skeins of yarn. And I used 2 skeins of yarn, but I used prints and not the solid. I still don't think it would have made that much of a difference though, because my opinion is I needed at least 3 balls of yarn to make it look like what it did in the picture. In the picture, it looked like something that was long that you could wrap around your head, and you would have these nice little tassels at the end with the cables and everything. And at the end of 2 skeins of yarn, I was like, this is not it. So I ended up whip stitching it closed and making it into a cowl. It is extremely warm. It is definitely not something that I personally would wear because I don't like super bulky things like that for me. I'm a little person, I don't need anything that bulky, but I loved making it. And since I live in a state that does not get that cold, definitely don't need anything that bulky. Now, if I was back home in New York and it's like minus whatever for weeks at a time, yeah, we could definitely use some extra thick layers around the neck and stuff, but just not here where I'm at right now. It's just not necessary. Like, it's cold today. I think it was 27 degrees when I woke up this morning, but it still doesn't warrant a super bulky hat and scarf to me. But I digress. So next up was a test knit for Knitworthy Designs, and this was the Red Hot Lovers skirt. I don't remember how I came to test knit this because I remember saying I wasn't test knitting anything else. But I think she reached out and just asked me if I wanted to do it for the sizing, just because you know what it was? I was looking for a skirt pattern at the time because I was trying to get ready for a summer occasion, and I was like, I want to make a skirt. And she reached out and said she has a pattern that she's making or putting out, and would I mind test knitting it for her. And I told her of course. So jumped on it. It is made with short row shaping. It is a pay for pattern, so I can't give you but so much detail, but I will say I really did enjoy making the skirt. The process was really nice. The issue that I had was at the end when you put in the waistband. I had never done one before, and I understood the concept of what I was hearing, but again, maybe a sizing thing, because I don't think I made it long enough. Like, I did wrap it around me, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong. Just let me know below. But when you put the elastic on your body, right, ideally you don't want it to be loose because you want it to snug in a little bit. So I pull the elastic enough to where it felt not tight but snug. The issue that I had, I believe, is putting the skirt on from, stepping into it. It had to get up over these hips, which is a little wider than my waist. And so I don't think I anticipated stretching it as much as I did to get it up over my belly and my hips and the junk in the trunk. And when I did that, I noticed that it was kind of like snapping a little, like it was really tight, and I had to do a little shimmy and, tug and pull to get the skirt on. And then, because it was made out of superwash merino, I put it in the washing machine. And lesson learned, my mother suggested and reminded me, you should have put it in a lingerie bag, like one of those bra bags or something you put your stockings in and your bras and stuff. So that way it wouldn't have gotten caught on whatever it got caught on, because when I took it out of the washing machine, the whole thing was shredded. The waistband was gone. The lace at the end was gone. Oh, I was so devastated. I was so devastated. And I was hurt because I'm like, why did you put it in a washing machine? I'm like, well, it's supposed to be super wash wool. That means you can put it in the machine and dry it. And I did that, but I didn't, I don't know. I was so upset. So upset. And now, again, there's some things about this pattern that if I had the opportunity to make it again, which I don't see why I wouldn't, I would change, if I could figure out how to do it, the rows. Because, again, body-wise, it's going around my waist, but because my backside is out there, when the skirt goes over the back of your backside, it hikes up in the back. And so it's longer in the front than it is in the back. And I don't like that look. I want the back and the front to be the same. So I don't know if it means at some point, do I need to add more short rows to the short row shaping? Or does it mean I need to cast on more stitch? I have no idea. And I haven't had enough brain power to figure it out. And when I'm trying to explain it to others, I was having a hard time getting them to understand that I don't want the skirt longer. I just want this panel in the back longer to accommodate the fact that it hikes up about an inch or two. And I don't like that look. So I don't know. We'll figure it out one day. But I did find other skirt patterns, so we'll try those maybe. We'll see. Next on the timeline looks like the half and half wrap, which as of this post, it says it was February 28th, and I said that I was halfway done with the first color, which I don't have a finished post anywhere in my timeline that I finished this half and half wrap, but I did. And I believe there's a video about me saying that I finished it. So again, I wasn't properly documenting this whole knitting journey. I think I started putting things on video and kind of forgot to capture them on Instagram and vice versa. But I did finish this in the year of 2023. I love this half and half wrap. I made it out of Knit Picks palette yarn. The half and half wrap, by the way, if you don't know, is a Purl Soho pattern that took the knitting world by storm. And again, late to the party because I just couldn't understand it. I'm like, it's just a big old blanket. Like, what's the big deal? But when you started making it, you realize it was one of those projects that just kind of drew you in. It really was so relaxing and meditative. There was a lot of tears into that project because I was just going through things, and it would be the one thing that I would just pick up and just knit and knit and knit. And over time, I don't know. If you're a knitter who has these emotions, you understand what I'm talking about. Non-knitters, I don't know how to explain it to you. It would be the same as, I think people who love fitness, they go in the gym and they grind it out on the machines, and then they start crying and they get a release and they say it feels so relaxing and therapeutic. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't get that, but that feeling, that's what that feels like. Or people who are maybe sad and you go shopping and you get a sense of relief from that. Same deal. This half and half wrap did that for me, and I highly recommend it to anyone. Any fingering weight yarn, I don't know exactly the yardages, but the pattern is on their website. It's free, as most of Purl Soho's patterns are. The palette yarn that I used was very similar to the linen quill that's recommended for the pattern. But at the time, I didn't have, the money to purchase the linen quill. Next on the list is the Easy Eyelet Yoke Light, which again is a knititude pattern. I fell in love with the Easy Eyelet Yoke cardigan. And I still have not made it. That is like a dream knit of mine that I just have not made. And I haven't made it because I made one cardigan in 2022 and I didn't like the process. I finished it, but I didn't like the process. It's again, you're making something for 48 inches or above. It's a lot of purling and knitting and a lot of purling and knitting. And I was just tired and I didn't want to do it anymore. I would say for the first time, because I also love knitting in the round and I don't like knitting in pieces, right? But I think for a cardigan, mentally, it's a little easier to knit that in pieces and sew it together because it doesn't seem so daunting to go across 400 stitches back and forth and back and just a personal gripe or hang up, I guess. So I don't know. One day, and then I tell you she'd make an appearance. One day the sweater will make it onto my needles and I'll have my dream knit made out of some dreamy yarn that I have been coveting. I don't know. Yes, Sylvia. So the Easy Eyelet Yoke Light, though, is a t-shirt version. She makes it out of a category 3 yarn. I used the organic cotton by Fibra Naturals. It was called Cottonwood. And I like this cotton. It's not a kitchen cotton by any means, so don't fear. It is still cotton though. It has no stretch. You know how you're moving your stitches and it kind of, it doesn't do that. It's very much a cotton yarn. But it was very, not silky. I kept describing it as buttery because it felt very smooth, like the yarn as it was wrapping around the needles and you feel it across your hands, it felt very smooth. Also, I had used some Nova Platina knitting needles, and those needles and that yarn, I think the combination just made it so it was perfect. But anyway, so I made that. So I don't see in here when I finished this project, but when I had my housewarming in June, I had it on. So I must have finished it sometime between February, March, and June. I don't know. But I finished it. I wore it. I love it. I still have it. I still wear it. And here's one of the lessons that we'll talk about in a future video. Care of a garment is so important. These are not store-bought clothes. So while you love them and you wear them, there is a way to take care of them so that they don't shrink, get tighter, felt, etc. And I've learned through all of these projects some sort of lesson that equates to stop being lazy with your knits. And this was one of them. I put it in the wash and that part was fine. But when I put it to go dry, again, I kept thinking, you put it on delicate, you put it on cool, that it shouldn't be a problem. But this shrunk just a little bit, but it shrunk just enough for me to not be too 100% comfortable with where it stops on my stomach. I make everything low enough to cover my lower part of my belly. And this now comes up just a little bit too much. And I said I was gonna like wet block it and try to stretch it out to give it back some of the length, but I haven't done it yet. And now it's winter, so I have no need to wear it right now. But that one definitely is a go-to pattern. I would make it again, and here I would probably eliminate either the short rows or I would shorten the amount of space between the eyelet rows. Right here, I don't want the holes right here. I don't want you to be able to see my skin, well, at least the cleavage area. I don't want that to be shown. I think it was 5 or 6 rows between eyelets, and I would shorten that to maybe 4, just to bring it up just a little bit, so that at the very least the last eyelet row would stop right at the top of the bust area and not over the bust area. So, but that's just a little personal gripe. I would try to fix it somehow, or maybe eliminate the last eyelet row altogether. I don't know. The next completed item were test knits for Spotted Dog Fiber Designs. She had 2 dish towels. One was called the April dish towel, and the other one, I'm thinking Spring Rockies or something like that. If I could remember to put the name in, but it was Spotted Dog Fiber Designs, or was it Peaks and Valleys? I think it was called Peaks and Valleys. And it was really a nice pattern. It was really, it's a dish towel, right? So it's, think of like a scarf, like a small commitment. It had a lot of ups and downs, and the decoration is really nice on it, and I enjoyed it. And it challenged me in a little bit because I used the written version of the directions, and then I flipped and tried to follow the charted version. I've never been one that loves chart knitting when it has weird symbols. I can't get my mind to wrap around what these symbols mean. And so what I had started doing years ago, it's going to sound crazy, but I started color coding the charts manually. So I would rewrite the chart out, and orange is well, you know, white is for a regular knit and purl, that's basic, but then orange would be a yarn over, a blue would be a knit 2 together, a pink would be a SSK. So I would basically color code the chart, that way I didn't have to remember what the stitch was, but then I would write it out. For some reason that worked better for me in trying to follow the chart without getting lost and trying to figure out what these symbols meant. Some of these symbols look the same, like is the line going this way or is it going that way, and then you got one going this way with a dash through it. It's like, I don't know what this stuff means. So when I color coded it, I was able to look at it and say, oh, that's an SK2P, you know, whatever. Child, we got our own language. So that was fine. And like I said, it was 2 test knits. They were pretty much back to back that I did for her. And here's my thought on a dish towel. I think they're beautiful, and I think for those who like to knit but don't want to commit or make sweaters, they're perfect. But for me, a dish towel is just a dish towel. So even though I love my towels and I use them every single day, both of them, I made one in white and a kitchen cotton that's in my bathroom. And kitchen cotton is, it's durable and it has its purpose in the home. But with that being said, I do so much damage to them, like just using them for random things. I never really get a chance to appreciate the design because I'm just using it, you know. But I do think if you want some challenging skills and you want to learn new techniques, dish towels and washcloths are pretty easy projects to do, and it would be worth your time to kind of explore. Now we're moving on, and it says we're here at May 7th, and I cast it on the Vagati. So back in 2022, when I made my first ranunculus, I loved the yoke of the ranunculus. It was so much fun dancing through the stitches and things. And I was on the hunt for something similar. I wasn't ready to make another ranunculus, but I was looking for something similar that I could use and appreciate, and I came across this Vagati. The first yarn that I casted on for this pattern was a Noro yarn, which was a cotton bamboo silk blend. And it sounds magical, but I did not like this yarn. Am I the only one who is not a fan of Noro yarns? Like, I love the color blending that their yarns do, but I was not feeling this combination. And someone had recommended to me on Instagram, maybe it's the needles that I'm using. And I do use primarily my Mindful, Knitter's Pride Mindful needles, because they're very pointy on the ends. It has a nice range of sizes. I love them. And the other Knitter's Pride set is that Nova Platina. Love those needles. So when they suggested trying a pair of Addi needles, I went on and ordered one needle for this project. And the Addi needles, to me, had a little bit more grip to the needle than I'm used to. Like the stitches wasn't just sliding as smoothly as I'm used to with my Knitter's Pride ones. And they were not pointy, which made it really hard to get in and do these stitches, the lacy stitches and stuff. So I abandoned this project with that yarn, and I decided to cast it on in the linen quill. Because during this time I ordered the linen quill, I finally got it. I was so excited, I wanted to use it. So I cast it on the linen quill for the Vagati, and history was made. I finished the tee. According to Instagram, I was standing at a finished sweater around August 10th, so I started June 20th. And well, actually I started before then, because my yoke I posted in June that had started it. So maybe I started 10 days earlier. I don't know. I'm really bad at this. I'm gonna do better next year. You gotta do your church finger walk. So between August 10th, when I finished that Vagati, and looks like September, I finished a few winter accessories. There's a maple beanie by CJ Design. I think that's her name, CJ.design on Instagram. There was an Eternity beanie by Honey Stitch Co. That's like a nice cabled beanie. I did the umbrella cowl from Fairmount Fibers, well, Manos del Uruguay. And I've made them both multiple times. I mean, made those 3 patterns multiple times in different yarns, different sizes. And those were really, really good. I loved all of them. Then September. So now we're down to September. This is just a few months ago. And this is where I think most of you might have started following this channel, which I got my Happy Place yarn at the same time in tandem. Laura Penrose, she used to be Penrose Knits. I think she's just Laura Penrose now on Instagram. Came out with this Sweet Shop blanket. Now when she was releasing this blanket or working on it, oh, I was so excited. It's so pretty. It's the color block diamond shape. If you've seen on Pearl Soho, I believe she also mentioned that was part of her inspiration. On Pearl Soho, they have, I believe it's called a prism blanket, which is just giant triangle boxes. And when she said she was making it, which I also had the same issue, I abandoned that project because the triangles were just too long. It was like a half and half wrap again, and I didn't feel like dealing with it. But her version in a DK weight yarn, smaller squares, smaller triangles, makes you feel a little bit more accomplished, and you can get through them a little bit faster. It was just so pretty, so nice. This yarn in that blanket, they were just meant to be. Like I said, it's a wool and cotton blend, and as now it's growing on me and it's in my lap, it's so cozy. Oh my gosh, you'll love it. I don't know if you want to make a sweater out of it or what, but I am loving it. Next up is another test knit for Knitworthy Designs. This is her Cascade beanie. It's a bulky weight, or maybe it was super bulky, I don't know, but she used this kind of yarn, which is a Malabrigo Rasta, and I want to say that's like a 5/6 weight. This thing was quick. It was just as quick as that ear warmer I talked about before. And with it being 2 colors, you would think, oh, it's going to take some time. It was quick. I finished the first one so fast, I didn't even have a chance to take videos or anything. So I got that done. I made a couple of those. One in the Malabrigo Rasta, and the other, what did I make this other one out of? Some stash yarn I had in here. It was a Hobby Lobby yarn I had that was still in there. And it was like a pink and a white, or a peachy color and a white. And it was so nice. It was so cute, and definitely a pattern that if you were looking for quick makes, or if you wanted to make a quick something for someone, that would be the one. I added a pom-pom to it because I just felt like it. but it doesn't need one. It's a very man-friendly hat, a very child-friendly hat. I think the pattern was in 4 sizes, so maybe not baby or infant, but definitely a little person, and then a next size little person, and then adult and adults medium and large or something like that. Um, but yeah, definitely would recommend that pattern. And last on the list of 2023 items is my second ranunculus. As of the making of this video, I don't know how I feel about this pattern, and I'm going to tell you why. So I casted it on in Goodwill yarn. That is a Pearl Soho yarn that I've also been wanting to try. They had a sale. I saw that it was, maybe it was $11.50, like the linen quilt. When the stuff is on sale, you don't have no choice but to buy it, you know. So I got the yarn, and I was obsessing over something in black. If you referenced the video before, or maybe 2 videos ago, there's a dress that I found in a Pom Pom magazine that was in black, and it took my breath away. And since seeing that picture, I'm like, I want all the things in black. Everything has to be in this beautiful dark coal black color. I made the ranunculus. I finished the ranunculus. I made the sleeves about this long this time. Last time I stopped right here, but this time I made it down to about the elbow. This is Goodwill yarn. It's 100% Andean wool, I think it's called. When I finished this sweater, I told myself, you don't need to block this sweater. It's going to be okay as it is. But I went ahead and put it in the sink, and I squeezed it out with a towel, and I lay it down on a towel. And 2 days later, it was still wet, and it was in the way, and I was getting a little frustrated. So I decided it's almost dry. I'm going to put it in the dryer on air and delicate. And when I took it out the dryer, I don't know if this yarn has bloomed like 18 times over, or if this is minorly felted, but something's up with it. So one, I made it in a smaller size because the first one I made, I felt like it was a little too big. And when I made the other one, it was in a different yarn. It was at a different gauge. So the stitches were a little bit thicker, and I think I chose a bigger size because I was a little worried about it being too tight. So I chose a smaller size based on what I knew from the first one, not calculating the fact that this yarn was thinner and then it supposedly blooms. Now, let me show you. So here's the black ranunculus. Oh, it's inside out. Hold on a second. All right. Now, the interesting thing with this sweater, felted, bloomed a lot, or whatever, is it still fits. It's snug, which I wanted. But can you see this? So when I first made it, it was extremely thin, like you could see through it, you know, and you still can. But let me see if you can see what I'm talking about. You see how these stitches look like? This is considered felting, right? Doesn't it look felted? And the thing is, it has so much, it still moves, right? It's not stiff, it's still pliable. So I'm confused on, is this yarn blooming? When I look at the yoke, it looks felted to me because these stitches look extra fuzzy, extra stuck together maybe. I don't know. But because it still has so much movement, it doesn't feel tight when you pull it, you know? But I do still love it. I love the fact that it's in black. I love the fact that it's fitted. The one thing that I will change next one, because I am making another one in 24. The next one is I would do the short rows in the back, but I would not do the short rows on the front. And the reason why is because with the short rows in the back, I notice like underneath the underarm part, this pulls up just a little too much at the armpit for me. So I would make the short rows in the back to give it some hang time on the back of my arm. And that would be it. But I love this yarn. It's so nice to knit with. That's why I'm so surprised how it's coming out as a project after blocking. And it's so weird because it still fits. So I'm wearing my ranunculus, so it doesn't really matter, and I'm almost positive that it will stretch out with wear. So I'm just going to give it a couple of weeks of wear and see how it does. I loved every part of making this, and I would definitely make it again. And like I said, this is literally the last project of 2023. I hate that I went down the impatient rabbit hole of trying to dry it when all I had to do was wait. Because technically I didn't even need it for anything. I wasn't wearing it then, you know, but I just wanted it to be finished, and I don't know. So yes, that's my recap. I'm glad that this year ended, I will say on a high note, despite the fact that I think I felted my garment. But it ended on a high note for me because I did complete some items, and I didn't put any pressure on myself to get anything specifically done. Like, there wasn't a number in mind. I have thoroughly enjoyed this YouTube channel growing process. I'm still amazed that there's so many people, considering when I started, I had like my best friend and my mom. Hey, day ones. Yeah, this is really just a documentation of the things that I'm knitting. This is like a journal entry every time I come on here to just kind of share what is happening knitting wise during that week or month. I do want to get a little more consistent with maybe posting every 2 weeks instead of every week. Every week was a little much of a stretch, and I still work Monday to Friday. So I think every 2 weeks will be the goal. But yeah, thank you for coming down the recap journey with me. I would love to see what you have been working on. You know what I want to know? I want to know what was your favorite project of 2023, as far as maybe even if you didn't finish it. What's your favorite project, and what was your favorite yarn? I think my favorite yarn has got to be this good wool that I just started working with. So far, out of everything that I've worked with this year, as much as I love linen quill, I think this good wool is it for me. I just have to learn to be patient and let it dry. At 100% Andean wool, the sheet probably just take forever to dry out. I don't know, but this yarn for me was a magic find, and I think I love it. So yeah, that's my favorite wool. And my favorite project will probably be, accessory wise, will be my half and half wrap. Garment wise, it's gonna have to be the ranunculus. I think mainly because there's a lot that happens in the yoke and it's fun, and because you can finish it relatively quickly, the yoke, you jump onto the body and it's done, and I really love that. So those are my two favorite projects for the year. So be sure to let me know what your favorites are of the year. And if you haven't made anything, let me know what your highlight of the year was. If there was anything that was uber positive and it just brings you joy to think about it, accomplishment wise, memory wise. Let me know what that is below. We can talk about it. Also, don't forget to find me on Instagram. As of 2024, I'm going to try my very best to document the process of my projects. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. This was a long one, I told you. But I look forward to seeing you in the new year. Y'all stay safe out there. Bye.